Hello, everybody, and welcome back. Thank you very much for joining me. My name's Deborah Hatswell, and you're listening to BBR Investigations. Tonight, you will hear from a witness who contacted me via YouTube and email, who's had an unforgettable experience in the Forest of Dean, a place that is as old as time and still has that ancient feel about it. Wild ponies still roam there, and herds of cows and sheep also roam free in the forest, protected by the Crown since 1090. This land is a haven for more than just the wildlife. We get reports here of ancient men, man apes, gorilla looking creatures, things that shimmy up the tree incredibly fast. We also have some dogman reports and some very canine like creatures that have been reported in the area. We start the interview as our witness explains what happened to him one night when he was camping out with friends in the forest, and you could even say you had a visit with the Oak King.
Back in the day, I think I must have been about 14, 15. So there's that whole kind of sexual thing. I think plays a lot in maybe it does, that whole kind of you're changing, you're sort of, as a young man and young male. And we used to sort of skive off school, and we used to go to this girl's house. And we were never, ever allowed in together. So I used to always meet him on this little bridge, like when you're kids, you call it the poo bridge, everything. And I was on this bridge meeting him, and Zach, his name is, he's since passed away, but he was very spiritual. And I'm waiting for him as a normal, just looking down at the water. Beautiful little brook. But funny enough, my mum and my family were all from that area, and they used to say there was there was a headless horseman down in that area. Kids stay out of there, and I always remember that being a kid, like the headless horseman, all this stuff. So I never had any problems with the forest. We used to go out in the forest, just camp out, wild camping all the time. Looking back now, I think, God, and it all used to go quiet. But I'm stood on this bridge just looking down, and I feel it wasn't a muscle reflex. I feel a hand. I felt the fingers come up behind me, like grab you like a friend does. Whoa, and I felt the fingers over my shoulder. They went, and I turned around like, really expect, because I was waiting for him, expecting to see him.
Yeah.
And there was no one there. And I even looked under the bridge, and it was only a little brook. This wasn't no bridge. It was only probably about 15 foot the bridge just to go over this like little beautiful brook. But the place where I had my experience was probably about 400 yards, if that, from here, from where I was. And we'll get back to, and I felt these fingers, and I'm like, Zach. And even though I knew no one was there, I still tried to, he's got to be here somewhere, looking around, but there was no one there. But I kind of just brushed that off. So we used to camp in this little kind of place we called Mossy Grove, that area on the picture which I showed you, sent to me. And there was me, there was probably about 6 or 7, maybe a little bit more, because I'm talking when I was 15, which is like 35 years ago. But there was quite a few of us there, little couples, and I was in a sleeping bag, and I was with this girl, Dawn, who I tried to get hold of the other day just to talk to her, and she kind of just like, you turn up like 30 years, I'm going to give you my number and talk, and I'm like, okay, well, there you go, I'm just, whatever. But I did talk to her after, and so I'm there, and we're all kind of in this. It was nothing for us just to camp out, start a fire. We're always very respectful to the woods. Don't always use dead wood for the fire, which is sensible anyway, because new wood doesn't burn. And it was mainly really just to get girls out into the woods. Nothing serious going on, just sort of, camping out in the woods. And there must have been about 6 of us there. And anyway, these kids turned up. These kind of like sort of rockabilly type, sort of punkish kids turned up. Anyway, they started breaking all the branches down off the trees, just being idiots. And I went crazy at them. I was going like, leave the trees alone. If you're going to go, because they were like, we're not collecting firewood, They were just being idiots, really. We could have taken care of them, but it wasn't that vibe, really. It was just... So, that happened, and then they kind of piled up towards the big tree, the beech tree, which is in the picture. They kind of piled up these branches of newish and new stuff, and they were drunk anyway, so they just like collapsed. So I was in a sleeping bag, and it wasn't a double bag with Dawn, and we were just there, kind of just trying to keep warm. Really, I don't know what time it better just have gone home, but we'd sleep on banks, we'd sleep anywhere, and we were in the middle of the Forest of Dean, so it was our playground really for the kids. So I was the first to sort of wake up, and just, you're always restless and uneasy, and the fire was going out, and I sort of not got up, but just got out of the bag a little bit and looked around and could see everybody there. And then I looked over to where, if you look at the picture, on the left-hand side, there's a broken post, which is on an angle going down. And you're obviously talking 37 years ago, probably 36 years ago. So a lot of the trees behind that fence is there because it's a drop.
Yes.
It's a quarry there. Not mega, I guess it's about 30, 40 feet, but that's where that fence is there. But those trees weren't as built up there. There was nothing there at all. All there was a sapling. Maybe it was a beech or a young oak that they'd broken about. So it was a sapling. There was nothing there basically apart from this. So sat there is this humongous man, and he sat straight backed with his leg is like, I can't remember, but I think it was his right leg across, like with his leg over, with his elbow on the leg, with his finger pointing his finger was pointing, away from it. It was either left to right or right to left, but I remember there was a finger pointing, just moving like a tree moves gently in the wind, just sort of looking. This thing was humongous. It was, I think it was about 12. It felt like when you're underneath a huge tree, and you're like, you get that kind of sense of, like, it's just, obviously it wasn't a bad thing because my head just went into, liquid mode, but was sat there just sort of moving very gently, but it was a tree. It was a tree, to all intents. It was a man. It was a big figure of a man.
Yes.
But a tree, if that makes any sense. I could see the arms that had like ivy, bits of like ivy around it, almost like sort of veins, but not really protruding. But I could see the figure around its entire body was like this like light, like almost like a little, like a haze, not like around it for a very, I guess inches, maybe half a foot. There were things inside that going like tiny little things, like doing little circles. I remember watching the Witches of Eastwick when Jack Nicholson comes back at the end. It was almost like electricity just going, but not sparking big, but just sort of gently. I looked at the face. I remember the finger just sort of moving, almost like sort of almost like not a school teacher, I wouldn't say, but that kind of very sort of, but I don't know, just sort of
authority
over it. Yes,
yeah,
exactly, yeah, and awe, and the eyes were like deep set kind of knots. I couldn't see any detail in the eyes at all, or the nose, or the mouth, but I could see it was a face, obviously, because I could see the eyes. But its head had like I couldn't really call it a crown, but its head had like apple blossom, like in a kind of, you could see that the haze. It was something on its head. You could see it, and it was just huge, just big arms, everything. So I'm like looking at this thing, and I don't know how long, but I remember looking at the rest of everybody. I couldn't speak, I couldn't shout, and they were almost like in suspended animation. They weren't going anywhere. And I'm shooting down into the sleeping bag, and I'm like convulsing, saying to Dawn, "We got to plant trees. We got to plant trees. We got to plant trees. Oh my God, what is that? We got to plant trees." And she's getting freaked out. And we had bruises on each other the next day, by the way, and we had hand marks on each other. And she's like, "What are you doing? What are you doing? You're freaking me out." And she starts wiggling out, and then I just feel her stop, like, and she goes, "Oh my God, why is he here? Why is he here?"
Oh.
She comes back then into the bag, and we're holding on to each other. She's like, "Why is he here? Oh my God, oh my God." We certainly had, like, marks where we were holding on so tight. I mean, and I was pretty much convulsing, in a just gibberish, and she wasn't much better, but she was a little bit more sort of calm, but because she just sort of peeked out and was like, "What is that? Why is that here? Why is he here?" More to the point, why is he here? Why is he looking at us? Why us? And we were just trying to make sense. But like I said, we went to sleep, which was the most, or whatever happened, which I couldn't believe. And I remember whether her brother was there the whole time. There might have been more people there than I thought, but obviously these lads had turned up and sort of gate crashed. And I was going crazy at them, going, "If you're going to break wood, everything, just go and get old wood, because new wood doesn't, it's just pointless." So they piled these branches on the ground and just sort of crashed out on them. And then that experience happened. I'm just trying to think if that was all the finger, the little bits of electricity coming around, the blossom that it had on the head. It was almost like apple blossom, like a crown.
Like a crown, yeah, like a crown.
But really kind of, and I've seen pictures of, like, the Green Man from history, and I'm like, yeah, that's kind of it. He was a lot more basic. Just, not very elaborate, not any beard or anything, just a very, like a tree, like a man. You could see the bark, and you could see the kind of, like, the veins that I guess were like ivy or whatever they were, not really, not protruding, but you could see it was a man. But the way it was sat, and it wasn't sat on anything because there was nothing there. All there was a broken sapling. There was nothing. But he was almost like sat as you would sit on a throne course. Yeah, what am I talking? Yeah, like with just that finger just moving very slowly, like a tree moves in the wind. So we kind of went to sleep, and then woke up the next morning, and it was light. I guess, I don't know, 6 o'clock, something like that. It must have been in the summer, maybe earlier. And we went off and sat on a log, and I'm like, "What happened? Did you?" And we both explained it identically. She said, "What was those things just like buzzing?" So I just looked at it for a few seconds, but she's like, "I took it in. What were those things?" And we both and there was nothing there. I've sent you the picture. I guess there's nothing there now, but and when we tried to say to her brother, Sean, tried to say, we saw this really weird, and then they just, "Oh yeah." So we kind of just said that that's it. It's between me and you. And I did see her about 10 years later, dropping her kids off at the school, and I remember that thing, and that what we saw. And sweet when I knew I was talking to you, but I didn't mention it was about our experience. I just said, "Oh, I'm doing this talk on a paranormal," and she didn't respond in the way I thought. So I got the impression she didn't want to talk about it, or had forgotten about it, which I can't believe how she asked. But
No, it's natural. It's quite natural that the lass that I was with, she just has. I'm not saying she doesn't have any interest in it. That's the wrong expression. I think it was incredibly frightening for us both, and I really needed to know. And for her, she just wanted to put it to bed, and that was it. It was something that happened when we were kids, and it wasn't anything. Yeah, and we have similar, really, to you. We've bumped into each other in the past, and it's there between us, like this elephant in the room.
Of course. I think you just got to realise that different people deal with things in different ways. It's that, whatever that was, whatever you saw, whatever I saw, that type of thing was in us. There's a whole thing out there where we're literally just walking, I guess any ancient people and First Nation in the world, these things were as natural to them as their families, I guess, and Israel, and that's what they believed in. That's what was there, and a better time it was probably had by all, I would have thought.
I just wanted to say that I researched, tried to go way back further than the Green Man, just to see when the first kind of stories not really cryptid-wise, but was there anything in our history that could kind of explain what is sometimes a modern word for it would be an ent. Some people call them puka or lesher.
Yeah.
You know the word that we used to have, druid. A dryad is a spirit that can be an elemental, a man, and nature all at the same time. And very early, I think it was Pliny that did Caesar's diary. He actually mentions them. He said that the men of Albion could be trees. There was no way that they would be able to infiltrate Britain at the time. They had to come back about 90 years later to do that because the men of the island could become the trees. So they were impossible to see. And they would just take the army out really, really quickly. And it's actually logged, written about. And I think they used the word silvestries. And it's kind of, it's like a nature spirit, really, that can be a man, a tree, a trickling brook. The area that you're in is incredibly ancient. And it's been,
Yeah, it is.
it's been looked after by the crown since about the 9th century,
You're absolutely shouting yourself because I was convulsing, but I didn't tell anybody. Nobody. And my mum, bless her, who not long ago passed away. My mum was really into. When I grew up, there was like the unexplained books, UFOs, Roswell. There was everything, all laid out ever. My mum loved all that stuff. She couldn't get any. She'd go up on the Brecon Beacons and go on Salisbury Plains looking for UFOs, and dragging her boyfriend or husband, whoever, up there, and just, she wasn't. She was just really interested in all that. And anyway, we were looking at this huge moon one night. There was like a big, I can't remember if it was a blood moon, but we were just looking, and I said, "Mum, I saw something in the woods," and she kind of just looked round at me, and I said, "Yeah," and she said, "Well, what did you see?" And I said, "Well, it was a man, but it was a tree." And she said, "Don't worry." She said, "Because I've seen it as well."
Right.
And I'm like, "Really?" And where she saw it, which a place called Chun's Lane Buckshaft. I mean, in the Forest of Dean, a lot of the times you're just the older places, especially when my mum was growing up, you're in the middle of the woods. These places were built into the woods, And she said that her and her sister Anne were walking up this really steep lane. They'd been out to a dance, something they were only 15, 16, or they'd been, and they saw this, like the Jolly Green Giant.
Right.
And they're like, "That's a tree." "No, that's a man." "That's a tree. That's a man." And as they got closer, they're like, "That's a man. That's the biggest man I've ever saw." And he had his hands on his hips, like the kind of Jolly Green Giant. But my mum and Auntie Anne, this lane is treacherous. They did a detour through brambles, thicket to get home, because you could get home another way. And my grandmother, bless her, spent till like the early hours of the morning. They peed themselves too. They were that frightened. My grandmother spent like hours getting all the thorns out of them and trying to calm them down, giving them tea, and just trying to, and that was the first thing my mum said, kind of not off the cuff, but very, "Don't worry, I've seen it. I didn't know if it was a man or a tree." But as we got closer, we couldn't differentiate between what it was, and we just panicked. And ran through all those bloody thorn bushes there. I mean, they're still there now, those bushes. It's a horrible little lane. It's only about 4 or 5 foot wide, steep, but it cuts out a long walk. I was listening in London to a thing on English folklore, and I can't remember who the woman was. They did a series of things. There was that book Hocus Pocus, which was supposedly like white spells, which I bought for my girlfriend who was into that type of stuff. And they had this thing going on. I think it was like Radio 4 maybe. And I said to the woman, well, I called in and I left a message, and she called me back, or I called back, and she said, "You should be very privileged, and just out of interest, what was your first memory when you were a child you can think of?" And my first memory was with my dad, who worked on the forestry and then went into nightclubs and different things, and he lives with me now still. My first real memory was picking acorns with my dad. We always picked acorns from the Forest of Dean, because he was living in either, the Midlands or wherever he was living, Devon, and we'd always, because he he planted a lot of trees in the forest of Dean, and he would always like to take some acorns. I know oaks only get to a certain size, and then you've got to get them out, otherwise they sort of perish. But we would always have our own oak trees with our little labels on and stuff. And if that thing was I shouldn't say that thing, but if that being was anything, I would say it was an oak, the mighty oak. I always have a soft spot. I mean, trees, unlike bad juju, if I cut through, and I think that's the main little route on that, because I plant trees all the time, but fatal for going into Morrison's and getting the 10 pence, 8 pence, trolley full of trees which have gone over, and I give them a chance. Trees, birches, mountain ash. I got everything in my garden that are all 8 pence Morrison's. I give them a little chance if there's a bit of green when I put my thumb on them, and some of them have grown into some pretty big trees. So it's just there. So
you are a man of the trees. They are what they call the men of the oak. That's actually what they called, and I'd forgotten that until you said that. They were called the men of the oaks. So your family, for generations, your ancestors have walked that land. You've looked after that land. You've been a guardian to it. You've planted trees. Your dad planted trees all the way along. You're much more connected to the earth and lots of us in 2022. So I was going to say to you, I didn't find it a coincidence that I bet your mum was a teenager when her event happened.
Yes, she was. Yeah, 15, 16, yeah.
Our energy changes around that time.
That's right.
As we become adults, we have a lot of energy that some people call it almost poltergeist, and I think it's wrong. We have these abilities.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah. And some people can affect the lights, that all of that.
Yeah,
There's a sexual attraction, it builds the energy.
But I also think, I watch everything on Bigfoot and Dogman. I'm absolutely fascinated with these beings, and they're totally out there, as you know.
Yeah.
And I think the ones, especially that live on First Nation and Native American, they know if you have a connection to the land. They obviously hate guns. They hate these people that are trying to take pictures of them or take film crews out on there. They got more chance of finding bloody Nemo than they have. It just ain't gonna happen. I think if you were out there like the First Nations and only taking from the land and pulling back to the land, and if you've got something, you give it, that's for the animals. If you've got that kind of, if they can see that you're a good person, or, I'm like, because I always think about the Green Mountain. Why me? Why did it? Because I could see everybody laid everywhere.
I know.
They were all there, like in suspended animation. There was Zach there was Claire there was Wendy there was lunatics there. There might have been 10 of us there. I can't remember. There was more than half a dozen. And when they turned up, it was a little gang. But I mean, I'm like, but it was there for me. Definitely, 100%. It was there to see me.
I think it was your connection. Your connection to nature.
Maybe, yeah. Maybe it was as simple as me giving them a barracking about not doing that, because I was going crazy because it was just not how I was. It's not how I'm made up, If I see people abusing anything now, especially animals or nature, that's my fight. That's it. That's my fight right there.
You have a respect for the woods. I think that's what you're trying to get across, that you wouldn't do something as disrespectful as that. And I think that comes across, so that I'm going to say you do. Have you heard that abilities run in families, down family lines?
Because my dad's like a warlock, pagan, even though it's not. There's certain things he does when he was in different areas of the world that are very, they're not even odd. They're just what people have taught him when he was in Africa, and he has these sticks that are used for a certain thing, and all being a kid was being about being out in the woods. Not if we were in America, put it that way, we would just spend our summers and maybe our winters just camping. I don't think we would have had many problems because I see things where person goes missing because of this encounter.
Mm.
I'm sure some of them are pretty, you know, they can be explained, and I'm sure some can't be explained. But when they just disappear, but usually they've got a gun in their hands, or
Yes.
they're out there to some of these people, like on that missing 411, that one the other day where the hunter, he was 80,
Mm.
he was an ex-paratrooper, he just disappeared, like 2 or 3, 4 or 5, disappeared into thin air, no trace.
You see, that's it. We don't know, do we? I think lots of people have theories about it, about what's going on, but we just don't know. The Forest of Dean is a place where males go missing as well. Um, we might have more
Really,
than
because
yeah, we might have more than one or two things going on. I think the area itself probably feels different in different places. So some
well,
places will feel foreboding.
this is the thing. I mean, like, the thing I was watching was in America,
Hmm.
but I mean, but it can happen there. Not about where obviously America they is bigger and a lot. These people just disappear, and I know certainly there have been some strange. There was always strange things going on in it where they were kind of hushed up in the Forest of Dean, where everything from who killed the bear to
Yes. Mm.
children going missing to adults going missing and
Yep.
not being seen to now they're saying that there's bloody wolves
Yes. In the Forest
in
of
the
Dean.
Forest of Dean,
Mm.
and in Simon chatting around there, just walking across the road at Colford, and I know there's areas. I know my forest well.
That the fact that you know it like the back of your hand. You're not walking in wearing camo. You've not got a lot of tech with you or anything that could resemble a weapon in any way, shape, or form. You're in there just
Yeah,
because you enjoy being in there. You know.
what you've said, that is a massive thing. I mean,
Mm.
I've got a couple of mates who I know we're on the same page. We kind of grew up together, and he gets out and about a bit more than me and sees the boar and the muntjacs and
Mm.
everything. And I could say to Robin, Rob, you ever seen anything weird? And he probably hasn't, because he's in tune with where he is, not what
Yes.
he's doing. These people that he's just at one with it. So they're going to just sort of let him go about his business. They're not going to scare him out of an area because he is no threat. I think
Yeah.
it's basic. The a little bit more intellectual and a little bit more sort of hippie. I mean, from what I can make out, they're very intelligent and don't like seeing the destruction. That's why a lot of the loggers and different people that have seen them and the government must know as well on
Mm.
a lot of this stuff. They must be so tuned in on it. I've heard stories that they've had different big beasts, whether they be sort of a Bigfoot type
Mm.
being or a dog man or whatever, and they've had like sort of tattoos on them, like they've got brands on them.
Ah, right. Yeah, yeah. I've heard sometimes symbols as well that are on them of a
Yeah,
certain
that's right,
symbol. Yeah.
symbols. Yeah. But I mean, that guy that was talking about the experience he had in just outside the Brecon Beacons, there's a
Mm.
lake up there somewhere, and it's named after a racehorse,
Ah,
had a
right.
race with it. And he had some really weird experiences. I think he's definitely ex-forces because he's a bit
Mm.
of a wild camper, but he's had a couple of experiences where it was wolves, and he got the impression, I guess, that the some kind of wolf cryptid, but he got the impression that the farmers knew exactly what was going on, but they kind of zipped it up because of the damage some of the animals had, and they just looked like something had gone onto the rear haunches and
Yeah.
opened it up. What do you think of all that type of stuff?
I've seen it with my own eyes. I've seen it up here. I mean, obviously,
Yeah,
I'm in a unique situation, me, where I'm taking reports from all across the country all of the time. I was thinking when you were talking, then there's an account in St Morgan in Cornwall. Chap
yeah,
who's
yeah.
working with pheasants. He's working for a farmer.
That's right.
Father did the
Yeah,
same.
they had to come
Grandfather did
back
the
and get
same.
him. Yeah,
Yeah, and he saw something looking at him out of the trees. We can transfer that to Scotland. I know a woman who lives in an area where she's way out there. She's way out there in the middle of the woods, and there's a lot of poachers and stuff. And they said, well, they steal fish out your nets. We avoid that place, and that's near Culloden, near the battlefield. Lots of people. It's just
really.
because they're living in those areas, and they know them like the back of the hand, and they're attuned to them, and they're living in the old way, and they see whatever word it is we give to them. I think it's different for each of us. I don't think no one's
Wow.
ever said exactly the same. Do you get what I mean? There's always a
Yeah.
difference for all of us. It's
Yeah.
different for all of us. So some people will say, "Oh, it was this big 7 foot tall ape man," and another man might say, "Oh, it was like a gorilla man." We all have our own word for it, but
Yeah.
and then you've
Yeah.
got like
I mean,
your kind of reports where we're seeing them in their old sense is the only way I could put it. Like they're connected to the ground. When you're seeing
yeah.
something like you where it's half a tree and it can morph like that, it's connecting to the ground. It's using that ground energy to
It's
show
a
you.
man tree, and I
Mm,
just think that I don't know. I mean, it's hard to think that is that another area. Like if there's dimensions, that say the fifth dimension where all those type of beings that
mm,
have been celebrated by ancestors, medieval times, going back and back and back, and then the Bigfoot are more, and those type of animals are more like just a tribe that we pushed out into the extremes. And I mean,
mm,
it's really because I know that one down in Morgan where the guy was pheasant stuff, and they came back for him, and he heard the whoops, and he could see the thing looking at him. And then
mm.
I know that there was a guy that was down where Newquay Airport is, which
Yeah.
is literally across the way, and he was down there when it was an RAF base, and he basically said, I think it's probably on your site, and he
Mm,
said that was one of the only bases, and I'd been on half a dozen or whatever. He said that was the only base where if we went out at night on patrol or went to go to the toilet, we doubled up. But then people say that, and then like when I saw what I saw and you saw, I could have done without it at the time. Put it that way.
that's it. I said it to somebody the other day. I said, you have like two separate lives. You have the before incident, before it happened to me, or my likes after like it happened to me kind of thing. And I just think it is. One lass who had this experience, she calls it the thing, not describing the being as the thing, that the actual
Yeah,
event happens. The
yeah.
event itself is the thing. Like once you
The
experience the thing, there's no
experience.
going back. So you
Yeah,
don't
because
ask for
I
it.
can count, I can
Mm,
count on my hand how many people I told when I was 15
mm.
to when I was 30, 15 years. I probably only told three, maybe four, and it's something only now if we're there late at night and people start saying, have you ever, all this stuff down there, have you ever seen anything weird? And oh, go on, and get the campfire thing maybe. But I haven't told that many people at all. And my partner, my girlfriend, because I watch all this Dog Man Big for
Mm.
everything, cryptid, everything, and it's like But from what I've seen, the rest of it is not below it, but it's the thing. That it's opened up a doorway which can't be closed. I can't. It's not my fault, but I've seen it.
That's
I've
it.
seen something that explain that one then.
Explain
Or
that away for me. It wasn't a homeless man. This is what people said to me. It wasn't. Was it a homeless man?
no,
No. Was it a boy in a mask? No. I wasn't a
no,
soft girl. If it had been a boy in a mask, it wouldn't have scared me. I'd have been really annoyed.
yeah,
Completely different. Completely different. There's nothing
yeah,
that looks like what I saw, to the extent you try and get a police artist to draw it for you, because I want out of my head what I saw so I can say to people, "That's what I
that.
saw."
Yeah, I've not ever had a decent eye. I mean, I'm a terrible drawer, but when
So,
I sketched it for my mum, she said, yeah, that's what I saw. That's him.
mm,
And it was just like, and I explained a few things. But I mean, yeah, I saw it when you went back there. I went back to that place where I saw that. I was on my own. I don't even know why I went down there. I have no idea. I used to walk those woods, and I thought, I'll go down there and have a look, try
mm,
and pinpoint where. And that mound almost looks like a sort of 12, 15-foot grave.
it
And
kind
I
of
said to
does.
Joe, a partner, I said, what? God, I've never noticed that. It almost looks like a burial mound. But yeah, it just looked like, oh my God, what's in there?
There's a couple of things that we could do. I can ask Mick, the chap that I work with, to look and see what the ley line situation is in the area.
See, sorry. I mean, I went off the. So that's the other thing I was going to say to you when I was talking about the hands. I was saying that there's got to be a ley line situation around there, and also the funny thing is about that little area, literally a spit from that area where I was. There's I'm sure it's just a complete coincidence. There's power lines running up and down, like in the middle of the woods. I know they do it, but I've always thought weird to have power. And there's the old railway lines there as well. There's a lot of caves and stuff because we're on the edge of a quarry. But the landline, the ley lines were something. Funny enough, I was going to say to you. I mean, there must be something going on.
There will be. There will be. Quarries are very important. Don't ask me why. I don't know. I don't have the answer for it. I don't know why quarries. Maybe that's how they go subterranean. I'm not sure. It might be to do with the rock itself. I don't know. I'm really not an expert enough to say that. But quarries are incredibly important. So Scotland, Peak District, New Forest, everywhere really. Where Nottingham, where we've got underground tunnels and we've got quarries, we tend to get a lot of sighting reports. Can I ask you a question? Was it kind of like an aura around him that was moving, like energy?
Yeah. There was nothing there. There was nothing there on that. As you looked out, there was nothing there, and he was as solid as a rock. It just looked like he'd come from, I guess, another dimension, and the electricity around it. But he was as solid as you or I, like 12 foot tall, but not sat on anything. The only thing was there was that broken sapling that stood there, 3 foot tall and like as thick as your thumb, probably. And he that was like his throne, but I couldn't see anything he was sat on, but he was certainly sat. But it was that finger, and obviously in loads of old paintings, medieval paintings, the finger resembles like something, doesn't it?
Wisdom.
You see,
it's wisdom, isn't it? That's what it is. Right. It's authority. Yeah. You said it before, a regality to him. He is regal.
Totally.
Totally. He is. He was our early God, whatever word people want to use for what we worship. He in the UK was our God. He's the guardian of our land. And back in the day, it's my soapbox. Back in the day, we would have worshipped him. We would have gifted within the woods, and we had ceremonies where when we became of age, we would go into the woods, and people are a bit strange about energy and sex. It's a kind of, oh no, don't discuss that. It's all the same. We're beings. We're made of energy, as are anything else that's in the universe, and we exchange our energy, and that's just the way that humans do it, And
it is. It's the next step. It's and nature, and especially with human beings, especially with the tides and everything. It's we've just lost what was there, and which was so pure and so easy to a certain degree. And especially with human beings, with women, with nature, with everything. It was just certain diets and whatever. I mean, wasn't it? It was. Obviously with the full moon and the tide thing, and I get crazy when there's a full moon. They go, oh, it must be a full moon. He's acting up again. You know what I mean? And I believe all that as well.
I do. I mean, not one for science, but clinical studies have shown that human beings react differently on a full moon or when it's retrograde. Actually, the armed forces, the police, the ambulance service will tell you that they goes crazy on those nights. We're connected to that ebb and flow, and people have taken that from us. Obviously, the elite have taken that from us because that's our power. If we realize that we were so plugged into the earth that we don't actually need anything, nature provides all of it, all our medicines, all our fuel, all our food. It's all there. What we've lost, what they've taken from us, is that ability to connect to that and use it. I brought the interview to a close at this point. Our witness wanted to go and get something to eat, and I thanked him for his time. I was really appreciative that he sat down and spoke to me. Many years ago, when I started doing what I was doing, I think there was only me and Neil Young and a small group of people that were actually pushing to build a community where you could speak about seeing a woodwose or a green man, Bigfoot, whatever name you want to put to them. somebody who sees something strange in the woods. And it's heartwarming for me to see the difference it is all these years on, where people are happy to share. They have an interest in what they saw and trying to work out why they saw it. He asked the first question most of you asked me, why me? And I think he saw it because he is a man of the oak, as was the being that he saw. His forefathers and foremothers for generations back, past 15 grandparents, no doubt. That wood has always been there, and man has always walked it, but it was walked with a different kind of respect than we have today. And I see a huge turning in that. I see so many people that are interested in the wild again, in nature, and getting out there and having their own experience if possible. I would imagine, I would guess, I'm not a gambling woman, but I would say that that's not the only time we're going to hear from this witness. I'm sure there will be future things to come. If you can check out the map, the links in the description below, you can see just how many sighting reports are in the area that he lives. They go all along the south coast of England, up to the Wolds and the Downs. And there are a multitude of them, far too many for me to mention here. I can bring you those reports at a later date, and I'd like to do that. And I could also look at other reports where this being has been seen, half man, half tree, like the old Dryad of old. So if you know anything on this subject that you think would help, please email me. My email's in the description below as well. It's debbiehatswell@gmail.com. So all that's left now is to thank you for tuning in, as you do every week. It's absolutely marvellous. If you want to hear these uploads a couple of days earlier, check out my Patreon or check out my Spreaker site or wherever you get your podcast from. And you might see a few behind the scenes videos and the odd early sighting report. You could also become a member on YouTube because I post those there as well. So until next week at the same time, have a lovely week. Good night, everyone.